The spark of revolution. The galaxy had long been ruled by ancient civilizations, their power spanning thousands of light years. The Federation, a coalition of the most advanced species in the galaxy, was the supreme authority, holding control over the most strategic and resource-rich worlds. They had established their dominance with unmatched technology, sophisticated weaponry, and military might. For most species, rebellion was inconceivable. The Federation's rule was seen as an immutable law of the universe. However, there were those who did not fit into the Federation's neatly structured hierarchy. Humanity was one such species. Their chaotic history, marked by wars, discoveries, and rapid technological advancements, made them an anomaly in a galaxy that prized order and control. Earth was a relatively young planet compared to many others in the galaxy, and humanity's potential had been underestimated for centuries. The Federation viewed them as primitive, volatile, and incapable of cooperation, too reckless to pose any real threat. For centuries, humanity struggled on the outskirts of galactic society, barely scraping by. But one thing they had that the Federation could never predict was their unyielding spirit. Humans, despite their struggles, had the incredible ability to adapt, innovate, and push forward no matter the cost. It wasn't until they invented the first faster-than-light travel system that their presence began to demand attention. The first spark of revolution was ignited when a small human-led faction, made up of mercenaries, rogue scientists, and exiled officers, launched a surprise strike against a Federation outpost in the fringe of human space. The attack was unexpected, chaotic, and deeply disorganized. Everything the Federation had assumed humanity's strategies would always be. But it was the Federation's inability to predict this disordered brilliance that turned the tide. Human unpredictability became their greatest weapon. When the Federation's fleet arrived to neutralize the rebellion, they were faced with something they could never have anticipated: a rapidly growing alliance of human forces, working in tandem with other species who had long been oppressed by the Federation. The battle was fierce, but humanity's willingness to fight without rules and without hesitation proved to be an insurmountable obstacle for the Federation's conventional tactics. By the time the first victory was achieved, the galaxy had begun to realize that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. And from that moment, the spark of revolution grew into something unstoppable. The rise of the human coalition. As word spread of humanity's victory, a movement was born. The rebellion, initially composed of a few hundred human ships and their alien allies, quickly swelled into a full-scale galactic uprising. Alien species that had suffered under the Federation's authoritarian rule saw in humanity not just a chance to free themselves, but a hope for a new era. The idea of a rebellion, powered by humanity's relentless spirit, began to resonate across the galaxy. What began as a chaotic resistance soon evolved into an organized coalition. Human leaders, many of whom had once been marginalized by the Federation, emerged as strategic masterminds. Their ingenuity was unmatched, not just in battle, but in diplomacy and psychological warfare. They knew that to bring the Federation to its knees, they would need more than just firepower. They would need to break the Federation's hold on its allies, its own people. Humans didn't just fight for survival. They fought to change the very nature of galactic politics. Their philosophy was simple but radical: freedom for all. They promised that under their leadership, no species would be subjugated, and no civilization would be dismissed as irrelevant. In a galaxy where the powerful trampled over the weak, humanity's promise of equality was an intoxicating vision. The Federation's first major misstep came when they underestimated humanity's capacity to form alliances. While the Federation had relied on sheer strength, humans worked with every species they could find. Even the most technologically inferior species had something to offer, and humans took advantage of every resource, every piece of knowledge, and every hidden talent. The rebellion began to grow in numbers, and the Federation's grip on the galaxy weakened. The war was no longer just about territory. It was a battle of ideologies. Humanity's rejection of the Federation's cold, calculating rule resonated with species that had long lived under oppression, and as their coalition expanded, the Federation began to realize that it was no longer just fighting a rebellion, it was fighting for the future of the galaxy itself. The galactic shifting point. The tipping point came when the rebellion captured the Federation's most strategic system, the core worlds. For centuries, the core worlds had been the seat of the Federation's power, home to their most elite military installations, their most valuable resources, and their political heart. The core worlds were not just important, they were the Federation's lifeblood. Losing them would mean the end of the Federation's dominance. The rebellion's assault on the core worlds was brutal. The Federation had fortified these planets, making them nearly impossible to breach. Yet humanity's tactical brilliance again proved itself. Using stealth ships, they infiltrated the Federation's communication networks, sowing confusion and disrupting key defensive systems. They struck not with overwhelming force, but with calculated precision. Each attack was designed not just to take out a target, but to create chaos in the Federation's ranks. The Federation, caught off guard by the intensity and unpredictability of the human forces, struggled to maintain control. Key figures within the Federation's command, once seen as untouchable, were assassinated, their positions replaced by those loyal to the rebellion. The core worlds fell, and with them, the Federation's iron grip on the galaxy began to slip. Capture of the core worlds marked the rebellion's official ascent to power. The Federation was no longer the unchallenged ruler of the stars. But while this victory was monumental, it was also just the beginning. With the core worlds under their control, the rebellion now had the resources to mount a full-scale invasion of the Federation's remaining strongholds. The Federation's final gambit, in a desperate move to preserve their control, the Federation turned to their ultimate weapon, the Nexus Cannon. This colossal weapon, capable of destroying entire star systems with a single blast, had been their secret weapon for decades. But even as they prepared to fire it, the rebellion was already 2 steps ahead. Humanity had anticipated this final gamble, and had begun laying the groundwork for the ultimate counterstrike. The battle for the Federation's capital world was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The rebellion faced the full might of the Federation's remaining forces, all of them desperate to hold on to the last shred of their power. The Nexus Cannon was ready, poised to unleash its devastating power. But in the chaos of the battle, the rebellion's forces managed to infiltrate the Federation's central command and take control of the weapon. When the Nexus Cannon fired, it wasn't at the rebellion. It was aimed squarely at the Federation's own capital. In a stroke of brilliance, humanity had turned the Federation's greatest weapon against them, erasing the very heart of their empire. The blast crippled the Federation's leadership, sending shockwaves through their ranks. The Federation, once so powerful and invincible, was now in disarray. Their final gambit had failed. Humanity had won. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of human dominance. With the Federation's collapse, humanity took its place at the top of the galactic hierarchy. The rebellion's victory had not only shattered the Federation's power, it had set the stage for a new era in the galaxy. Humanity had proven that they were not just capable of surviving, they were capable of leading. The establishment of the human coalition marked the beginning of a new age of peace and prosperity. The Federation's oppressive laws were dismantled, and the galaxy's many species were invited to join a new, egalitarian alliance. No longer would the strong dominate the weak. Under humanity's leadership, every species would have a voice. But even as humanity assumed control, there were challenges ahead. Former Federation loyalists, now scattered across the galaxy, plotted to reclaim their lost power. The new human-led government would face challenges both internal and external. But humanity's rise was unstoppable. Their drive, their resilience, and their unyielding desire for freedom had carried them to the top, and they would not easily give up that power. The legacy of humanity's rise, the galaxy, once ruled by the Federation, was now under the leadership of humanity. Their rise had been swift, but their rule was founded on principles of justice, freedom, and unity. The galaxy that had once seen humanity as a chaotic, primitive species now saw them as the beacon of a new era. Humanity's legacy was not just one of military might, it was a legacy of change. Where once there was oppression, there was now cooperation. Where once there was division, there was now unity. Humanity's leadership became a symbol of hope for the countless species that had suffered under the Federation's rule. And though the galaxy had been forever altered by humanity's rise, the true impact of their leadership would be felt for generations to come. For the first time, the galaxy was no longer divided by power. It was united by the belief that every species deserved a chance to thrive. The stars above, once a symbol of the Federation's dominance, now belonged to a new generation, a generation shaped by humanity's unrelenting will to lead.